love the representation of diversity in this picture book that would appeal to both boys and girls. Friends like Parisa, who swims in her hijab swimsuit, and Mason, who uses a wheelchair on dry land but can swim like a fish in the water. Again, that's book reviewer Rebecca Flansburgh. So check out the book. Check out the end where Shelley, after she accomplishes a task, she rewards herself by making a new sports charm for her crown. And we do appreciate Shelley's support of this podcast. You know, I remember being around the U.S. women's national soccer team a few times over the years, covering Olympics and national events. And, you know, it's very easy on the outside for people to say, oh, of course, these women are trying to grow their sport, and therefore they have to do everything to promote their sport. But I do remember that, you know, you're talking about Mia Hamm, some really big stars. They also sometimes got overwhelmed by that responsibility and had to just take breaks from always being out in the media doing things. What has it been like for your players and even yourself to have to, you know, to want to grow the sport, but also having to set certain limits on just how much you can be asked to do?
Well, you know, I have, you know, speaking, you know, from my personal experience, I don't tell the players' story, but I've been around, so I understand what they have gone through. But let's just throw it all into a pile. All the things that we're asked to do. I have people that every once in a while say to me, "This must be a real pain in the neck." You know, gosh, you can't even have dinner without somebody coming over to say something, or you can't do this. And my reply is that for me, it's not a bother. For me, this is something that's amazing in that this is because we've grown the sport, because of the hard work that we've put in for all women's sports. And those of us that have, you know, kind of poured everything we have into it, to those that have been allies, I see that as growth. And this is what we're after. And so for me, it's not a bother. I've never been bothered to sign an autograph or somebody sends something, say, hey, can you please sign these things? Those things are not an inconvenience to me. And I think our players feel that way. I think there are times that maybe you do get worn down and maybe you would like to just have some quiet. But that doesn't go with our jobs. It doesn't go with being professional athletes or a professional coach. And so if you want quiet, you probably got to go find something else to do. And there's going to be a day, and I tell all of my players this, there'll be a day that you wish that somebody wanted your autograph. I remember a player that I coached years ago that, you know, was a good player. You know, they thought that they were, you know, they had etched their mark in sports history sort of thing. And, you know, it's so fleeting anymore. And, you know, this player that when you say their name was such a factor during her career. But when you say her name now, people go, who? No, I don't remember her. And so I try to remind them, you know, that, you know, what we have was pretty good. You know, you're leading a pretty charmed life and enjoy it, soak it up, because it's not going to be here forever. Yeah, well, that certainly makes a lot of sense. Tell me more about Charima's role, what you envision her. You talked about some of her strengths. How do you think she fits into the roster going forward here? We felt like Charima was such an important signing. You know, next to Simone's return, it was because Charima can do so many things. You know, Swiss Army knife, if you will. That if you need her to guard a point guard, she'll do it. If you need her to guard a 2, a 3, a 4, you know, I probably wouldn't go so far as a 5, but I can tell you what, if I asked her to, I know she'd fight, you know, tooth and nail and do the best that she can. She has a way about her, a fight about her that, like I said before, is very difficult to play against. That the value of versatility, you know, especially when you put, you know, a player next to Simone, we're always looking at the contrast. You know, whether it's a Simone Maya contrast, you know, Lindsay Simone contrast, now a Danielle Robinson Simone contrast. There's some important things that will allow Simone to be a better player. And so putting Charima at times next to Simone, that it makes sense that she's going to have to take on some of the dirty work because that's what she does. It's her identity. You know, Simone has been, you know, through the years to somebody that's improved and giving us more on the defensive side of it. But, you know, at this point, I don't want Simone running around guarding, you know, really challenging players because I need Simone physically, you know, to feel well enough to perform when she does have a defensive assignment, but then certainly on the offensive end. So, you know, we certainly have Simone in mind when we signed Charima. And we talked to Charima about that, you know, she's just so gifted in the ways that you can use her. And then I mentioned offensively, you know, the ability to attack the basket, whether it's against next to Simone or not. It's just not something our team did very well last year. You've got to be able to put pressure at the rim other than Sil. Syl has tremendous pressure down there. Last year, if we weren't getting, action with Syl on the inside, we weren't getting there. Lindsay doesn't get to the rim anymore, or did not get to the rim anymore. Simone doesn't get to the rim. Maya had difficulty in getting there and getting calls. And so, we really looked at that and thought, we needed some pressure at the rim because then it opens everything else up. And then also Syl needs Charima. Whether you're playing Charima, on the perimeter, whether she spends some minutes at the power forward, what she's capable of. I don't want to, it's not a full-time position for her, but certainly something she can do. Giving Syl more space, and when Syl does kick it out, finding ways that Charima can, put her defender in a challenging position that you got to close out to Charima. You have to respect her ability to shoot the three, and we're going to ask all of our players, just like we did in 2017. After the 2016 season, we felt like we needed to shoot more threes. We fell off again last year. We've got to be a better team in that area. We're not going to fall completely hostage to analytics, but it was a problem for us last year, a problem for our offense. And in order for our offense to be better, we've got to be able to, to get to the foul line. And as a result of being able to do that, we're obviously going to be able to get more opportunities from three.
The National Girls and Women in Sports Day, I believe, is February 6th, kind of being celebrated the whole first week of February. I've gotten some interesting answers when I've asked my co-hosts about, to name a woman who's been influential for them. What comes to mind when I ask you that?
Well, I think the obvious, I think women in most of our lives away from sport would be our moms, and that's no different for me. I think I've learned through the years. I'm now past 50, and I didn't necessarily know this certainly didn't know it in my teen years, because none of us know it when we're teens. We're such a difficult thing to deal with, even through my 20s, 30s. And I really started, as you really start to know who you are and what you're about, you start to kind of go, where did I get this from? And you really look around. And so I think a lot of who I am, in terms of, I think the competitor, my mom, she's just somebody that just always pushed us, hated to lose and, wanted us to get back out there. And so certainly my mom, in the sporting world, my profession, my high school coach, there's no question about it. When I look back, she was absolutely instrumental in the path that I chose for basketball. She was somebody that told me, that I was good enough. First of all, I think that's important. When someone tells you when you're a teenager, you should do this, you're really good at this, and gives you the courage, the confidence to do it, and then show you how. When you're 17 years old, you don't know anything. You think you do. You think you know everything, right? But you don't know anything. And this particular person in my life, Dawn Bunting, when her married name was Dawn Schilling. She was so good to all of us. We had 5 Division I players on our basketball team. Not all basketball. We had a multitude of sports, field hockey and basketball, and actually just 2 sports, field hockey. We had 5 Division I players. And she gave her attention to all of us and helped all of us achieve our dreams. I went. I played basketball and softball. I was a 3-sport athlete. I tried field hockey. Absolutely hated it. The sticks were way too short for me. I needed a longer stick because I never hit the darn ball when I was trying to hit it. But I tried that for 1 year, and then I turned to actually tennis in my latter years. So, but this particular coach saw the landscape of sports, and what she said to me is, "You're probably better in softball. You're a better player to this point, but your future is in basketball. There's way more scholarship money, and you really need to concentrate your efforts." And I tell you, I remember being at home, writing letters to colleges and stuffing envelopes with, of course, your parents kind of help you, what it should say, what it should look like, and then you stuff your envelopes and you send them off. I was going to college for softball. I was sure of it. And then I remember, like it was yesterday, that conversation of her saying, you really should pursue basketball. And luckily for me, I had a really good player on our team that colleges were coming to see. And so as a result of that, I was able to be seen and thought, enough of that I was able to get a Division I scholarship to LaSalle University. And, the timing at LaSalle, the guy that recruited me ended up not being there by the time I got there, and ended up, I'm sure he was a nice guy and everything, but we weren't, the team would not have been as good. And then we got Speedy Morris as a coach. Life is about timing and seizing opportunities and that sort of thing. And my career, if you look at that, it's about getting lucky when this happened or that happened, and then just being aware of the opportunity and trying to seize the opportunity. My high school coach allowed allowed me to do that. And then, my coaching career, Ann Donovan, Lynn Dunn, Kelly Kropskoff, I would call a mentor. I think mentors are so important, and it's made me so aware. And I try to do the same thing for anybody I come across, that if there's anything I can share that would help point them into their journey or what their path should be. It's because of those people. I try to be more aware of that, of the power of doing that.
At some point in the near future, I'd like to talk to you about Lindsey Vonn, who I was lucky to cover in a couple of Olympics. One of the greatest, probably one of the greatest female athletes in American sports history. Kendall Coyne, Marcia Howard, what she's doing at the University of Wisconsin. But for today, let's talk about Chechi Zandalicini and Temi Fagbenle. As Kent wrote in the Star Tribune this weekend, they are scheduled to play for their countries in the Olympic qualifying tournament, and that could take them away from you for a certain amount of time. How much do you know about that situation at this point?
Well, I think like all the players that have qualified, this is sort of an annual thing with international players. Each year you go, okay, what do they have this year? What do we have to contend with this year? And even though that Temi has, and it's really not just international players anymore. There are quite a few American players that are getting passports to compete for other countries. They make that decision. It's financial, as well as when they go, okay, well, I don't think I'm ever going to be a part of USAB, because once you compete internationally for another country, you can never come back and play for the USA. Courtney Vandersloot is one of those players. I sort of wish that she, had not made the decision to play for another country, because I think she would be getting her time with USA Basketball now. But decision she made a few years ago, and you do the best you can with the information you have at the time. But so great news for Chechi and for Temi in that teams to be more successful. If they do qualify for the Olympics, obviously is huge for each of those countries. Italy has not been on a high level in terms of international stage, and nor has Great Britain. And so it's really an incredible accomplishment. It's something that they're each really excited about, and it's a tough decision for them. And if they choose to spend their time with their national team to do the best that they can when it comes to the Eurobasket, and that means they don't come to us after, that doesn't mean that they don't value their time with the Lynx. It is difficult. It makes it more challenging. But I think in each of their cases, we're happy for them that they've been able to do this. And, if they weren't good enough players, then their teams wouldn't be doing this. So it's sort of a double-edged thing, that, you're happy. At the other side, you go, okay, what about my team? And so, we have ongoing conversations, and, both of those players are terrific in terms of how they feel about their role in our team and how important it is. And we just have to keep working towards the best resolution.
I'm in Atlanta. Cheryl's back home in Minneapolis. Brandon, of course, I don't know if Brandon can respond right now. Hoping that didn't cut out too much. I know we lost a sentence in there maybe someplace, but I think people can grasp the essence of what you were saying. I know you're not going to give any organizational secrets, but do you have anything you can share about the process now of filling out your roster and next moves? Do you see more moves in free agency? Can you give us any window into the picture of what you're up to right now?
Yeah, and this has been ongoing. I know that it sort of came to a head, February 1, because that's when you can begin the signing process. And so there have been ongoing conversations, for really the better part of January, a little bit before the new year, but mostly where teams really begin to engage, and what's happening now as it sort of shakes out and players end up on whatever teams, and everybody can kind of see where they are. And so the next phase of this is to figure out, okay, maybe this player, we thought this was going to happen over here, but now they're available. You have to weigh those decisions, how it fits in your roster. What we've tried to do with our roster is that we want to be mindful that we'd really like, in a perfect scenario, players that are going to be with us for the foreseeable future. In the WNBA, that's 3 years. 3 years. 3 is longer than 2, obviously. And so you have this mindset that we don't want to sign anyone that we don't think is part of it for the long haul, if you will. That's the utopia, the ideal situation. I don't know at what point that you move from utopia and say, okay, well, we prefer this, but now we're here. We're probably a ways away from that, and we have to understand what's available now. You know, as you get closer to the draft, you're going to start to hear more about players and not free agent, but now under contract that could be available in trade.